Joining Martha and I right now is Christie Miller. Came all the way in from Lorraine.
From Lorraine, Ohio.
Whoa,
yes, I did.
That's a long drive.
Yeah, about an hour and 50 minutes.
Lord. And you're with the
Cleveland Rape Crisis Center.
Tell us about that.
Cleveland Rape Crisis Center is actually located in downtown Cleveland. However, we were awarded a grant about a year and a half ago that would help us to expand our services to Lake Geauga and Ashtabula County. All three of those counties unfortunately not having rape crisis services. So that is, I am outreach coordinator, and that's how I met lovely Martha here over at the prison and the work that I do over there. So.
Now, how does that relate to the prison, that particular organization?
Well, a couple things. First of all, the PREA, which is the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is a federally mandated program. What it does in the prisons is it mandates that rape crisis services are available to inmates confidentially or what have you. So as part of accreditation, the Lake Erie Correctional needed to sign an MOU, or a Memorandum of Understanding, and reached out to Cleveland Rape Crisis. And so that's the first step in how we got connected.
Okay.
Then we do a group within our organization every Thursday morning called Trauma 101. And I kind of thought, you know what, I bet you that there are guys out in the prison that could benefit from that. So trauma comes in so many different forms, and we don't gear specifically this group towards sexual abuse, although so many folks have experienced it in their lifetime. So the guys that have kind of signed up to participate in this group came on the basis that they were interested in finding out what exactly is post-traumatic stress disorder and how it relates to trauma, which they go hand in hand, substance abuse issues, and safe coping skills in dealing with those past traumas that they may have experienced. So we have been doing that, and it's been going fantastic.
Really?
Love it.
How many times you come down to?
I come out here once a week. I drive from Lorraine once a week.
Really?
On Tuesday mornings from 9 to 10 we have group, and then that's a 10-week program. There's it's sign up for them to participate, and then apparently there's a waiting list for the next round of groups. So
Really?
You just started doing this though, didn't you?
I did. This is our very first group, yes.
And it started when?
The first part of January. We kind of we changed the name a few times to get interest in it, and I think some of it maybe sounded a little too clinically or something like this, and this is just clear and cut. You know, this is post-traumatic stress and trauma and safe and unsafe coping skills, and so it's been really.
So you address those subjects.
Yes.
And can they ask questions and all that?
Absolutely. This group is pretty much geared more towards a psychoeducational group, more so than a recovery group, which means that we don't do so much processing. You know, they don't really sit and have an opportunity to share, although they do. But this is more an educational, giving them this information. The first step in the group process was that every gentleman did a post-traumatic stress self-rating scale, where they did it on themselves. Are you having reoccurring thoughts and things? Not asking them what their trauma was. You know, that's not my business. They can share if they want to, and most all of them rated pretty darn high as far as that.
Really?
So the goal and the goal of this group too is to, by the end of the 10 weeks, help them to identify safe coping skills, and then being able to retake that self-test, and hopefully those numbers go down.
Okay.
So you just put the sign up and said, we're going to have this group at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever.
Right.
And you didn't know if anybody was going to show up or not.
Well, they signed up.
I mean, they did sign up.
Right. But we didn't know.
How many signed up, and did everybody who signed up
Everybody,
show up?
I think we initially had 9 and we had 8 that have been consistent throughout the course of, I think, the 5 weeks so far.
So did you pick up anybody else after it started?
You can't.
Oh,
because
okay.
it kind of
Yeah.
follows a format. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can't. This isn't like a revolving group where people can just come and go. So, and the nice part of it is, in a way, is that these guys are there, so they can't not show up. 'Cause, you know,
Sleep in probably or whatever.
yeah. So.
They know where they're at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they've actually become very interested in it. I mean, it's been really a learning process for me, as well as for these guys. So I've loved coming out there.
The crime of rape, now, is that quite predominant? I mean, I'm kind of naive. I mean, do we have it here in Ashtabula County?
Absolutely, it's everywhere. Statistics are 1 in 6 women in their lifetime.
1 in 6.
Wow.
Yes, 1 in 33 men. And the reason the men's that's it's so much different than women is because men are less likely to come forward because of that. The stereotype that we put on men. To be strong and so yeah.
It just bothers me that this kind of thing happens out there. But I guess the more you watch movies and that sort of stuff, you see that happening. The Bill Cosby thing, huge.
Huge.
Do you discuss any of that stuff?
That doesn't come up in our group. I know we get asked that a lot. I can even say my mom didn't quite understand how after 20 years people come forward.
Right. Can you explain that?
Well, a lot of time, there is a statute of limitations that's 20 years from the time an assault occurred. In a situation like with Bill Cosby, you have a guy who's in a position of power,
Yeah.
who's got a lot of money. Who has pretty much, probably threatened or made comments or whatever. And I'm saying all of this hypothetically based on the
Correct.
knowledge that we know about sexual assault and what have you. Who's going to believe her? Are you going to believe me or are you going to believe Bill Cosby?
Right.
And so, it took like one person to come forward and then everybody else starts because it's like that snowball effect. Well, okay, I'm getting strength from that person, so I'm going to come forward. So, yeah.
So many times too, and this really bothers me, is that it seems like a lot of women that report this stuff, the cops come back on them, making them be the victim, and
Victim
I find
blaming.
that disgusting.
Well, thank you, because it is. No, a lot of victim blaming. We have a lot of issues dealing with, well, if she didn't go to that party or if she didn't dress like that or what have you. And, rape is about power and it's about control. And it doesn't find any difference between, races or ethnicities or gender or clothing. If that person wants to do that to that person at that time, it's going to happen. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Martha, you got any questions?
Well, I'm just thinking now. You were talking about this prison. When did they pass the legislation so that?
Priya, I believe. Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble here.
No, I mean, is it
No.
like recent? Is
Yes.
it within
the past 2 years,
2 years
that
or
they've
so it's
made
fairly
it.
new.
Yes.
So did you contact the prison, and you said
No,
they
the prison
contacted
reached.
you?
They did. They reached out to
Oh,
Cleveland
okay.
Rape Crisis, and
Okay. And so you had never gone in a prison before? Was this?
I
your-
have. I
Okay.
actually did community corrections for a short stint.
Oh.
I actually. Cleveland Rape Crisis has a human trafficking component to it, but I myself am assistant director to the Human Trafficking Collaborative of Lorain County. And so we do a lot of work out there in the community-based correctional facility. So I've been out there doing a lot of stuff, in the jails, men and women, so I'm pretty familiar with it.
So you said, okay, I'll do that. I'll go in.
Absolutely.
No
So how long have you
problem.
been doing this job?
I've been at Cleveland Rape Crisis for over a year and a half. I've been in the work working with women and children, domestic violence, sexual abuse, sexual assault for almost 20 years.
Really? No
Yeah.
kidding.
I know, right?
So you said you have one group out there now, and
Correct.
So are you pleased that there's a waiting list? Because
Oh,
you're
absolutely.
like just the tip of the iceberg kind of a thing.
It is, and I think it's been really insightful for these guys. I think, there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of learning in prisons. The goal I know of Lake Erie is rehabilitation,
Right.
and this is
Yeah.
part of that process.
That's what I
Yeah.
wanted to get out from,
Yeah.
Right.
from you. Are you strictly into rehabilitation? What about the victims? Do you help them also?
If there was a need for somebody, it's an interesting dynamic in a prison because, unfortunately, if a man was to disclose a sexual assault and it was found out, the chances of him being re-victimized in the prison system is pretty great. And so, you know, it's a real fine line of being able to, if somebody needed our services, my goodness, absolutely, we would, you know, make sure to take care of that and help them through that process. But it's real kind of, it's a sticky, just because of the prison situation.
Right.
There are predators. I mean, there's predators anywhere, but they're stuck, you know, more so than they would be out in the outside world.
I saw a report on the news Friday that this teacher up there towards Cleveland was photographing
I saw
little
that.
kids.
Oh my God.
And they were
I just kind of saw a blurb of that this
yeah.
morning on the news.
I mean, here's a 32-year-old guy that ruined his career, his life.
But he ruined those kids.
And he ruined the kids.
That's the thing. You know, Cleveland Rape Crisis is victim-centered. That is 110% our goal, is that we are focused towards victims and helping them to get healthy in their lives. It makes our jobs easier too, because there's not a victim we don't believe. And so, especially when there's children involved, the most incredibly important, crucial element to that is getting the support that they need, be it from their family, their school, through counseling and therapy, what have you. Because what happens then is the PTSD will end up surfacing. And that just kind of snowballs into a lifelong just disaster, drug abuse, you know, substance abuse, what have you. So yeah, it can really manifest itself in some really horrible ways.
Have you seen any success stories as far as these guys that are doing this kind of stuff coming back and leading a responsible life, or are they pretty much tattooed for the rest of their life?
Well, you're going to be a registered sex offender for
That's
the rest
true.
of your life.
That's
so,
true.
You know, no, I mean, they're not. You know, this has been historically, especially if he's 32 and he's just getting caught, I'm sure there's a whole plethora of folks that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Terrible.
Do you get the guys in the prison that come in thinking that they're going to be able to talk, that they're going to be able to, you know, open up, and then they find out that that they're really learning from you rather than getting a chance to talk? They
do have a chance to process.
Okay.
I mean, I don't cut people off. If somebody wants to share something, my goodness, I'll absolutely, you know, engage them and let them do that. I actually had one of the guys 2 weeks ago. He challenged me, you know, with the information that I was providing, and it was pretty funny because
was he saying you were all wrong, or what?
Well, he just kind of didn't like something that I had said, and it wasn't meant in a disrespectful manner at all. But, you know, you've got a bunch of people who are just in a bad situation, and so many of them have experienced just horrendous upbringings. And I make sure to let them know that I'm not condoning their behavior at all. I mean, they absolutely deserve to be there if they've committed the crime. But I am trying to teach them that maybe some of the things that they've dealt with in their past as children have probably precipitated these behaviors that kind of landed them there. So what are we going to do to not repeat those behaviors? And yeah, he challenged me, and by the end of the day, one of the other gentlemen had my back, kind of, you know, stuck up for me.
You didn't take it personal.
Oh, no.
Before we get any further, I guess I got to get down and dirty here with you, so to speak. Trafficking.
Yes.
So you say there's a lot of trafficking going on.
It's everywhere. Human trafficking is a $32 billion a year industry, which is more than Google, Nike, and Starbucks combined.
So we're talking prostitutes.
We are, right?
Okay. Now you got to handle this kind of close, you know, close to the vest. Like when you know, like if a lady's on the takeout there for the soda,
sure.
What's that cost today?
You know, it just all depends. We've heard things as low as, you know, $5-10 for certain things.
Really?
Yeah. You know, it just all kind of depends. There's a lot of, unfortunately, drug addiction. This can also go back to childhood sex abuse and such. A wonderful woman, her name, and it's like, I don't know why it's escaping, Rachel Lloyd. She runs a program called GEMS in New York City, and she said something really prolific that child sex abuse is a boot camp for this lifestyle. And what happens is you have such skewed ideas of what relationships are, and a lot of times kids will leave their home situations and run away because it's worse at home. They could be being abused at home. Mom's a drug addict, dad sexually abusing them, family members or what have you. They leave, they go out on the streets. They're then instantly, usually about 24 to 48 hours before they're approached by a man, a lot of times a woman. He'll have his top woman in there, and I won't use what she's termed on TV, but she'll go out there and she recruits these young girls. And the average age is about 12 to 14 years old.
Oh my God.
So he'll take them and put them in hotels, or you don't have to be moved. With the term trafficking, you don't have to be transported. I think that's a big misconception. Kids and women are being trafficked out of hotels, every hotel in the country at some point, if not out of their own homes, at the truck stops, all over the place.
Martha asked a good question during the break. She goes, how much do these girls get?
Right.
Nothing.
And you said nothing.
Nothing. No, because her pimp takes all her money. He'll provide her with food and like basic needs.
So he gives her a place to stay and food.
Right, if
and
she
then,
eats, it depends. It's a very torturous relationship.
See, I hate to say it, but I thought they made lots of money.
Well, yeah.
I know. No, they don't. No, I mean, they're not making anything. She usually will have a quota for the day. And this is a 365-day-a-year business. These girls are working, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And it's unfortunate, but we've all seen the movie, what is it, Taken? And at the very end, Dad comes and saves her.
Right.
That's not how these end up. Most of the time, these girls end up dead. And that's because they've either been killed by a John, who was the person who purchases sex. Her pimp may have killed her, or she ended up overdosing on drugs or killed herself, because it's just such a horrendous way to live.
And then you have all these diseases that...
I was just
Which
saying,
they
how about
can
the
be
medical?
right, and they're not
aspect
getting
of it?
any sort of medical attention for any of these things. A lot of times too, this is a big organized crime in a lot of regards, and a lot of times if you are a big pimp with a lot of, you've got people on your payroll. So if there's a need for medical and things like that, you probably have got somebody who's working for you someplace that can
Is
help.
that right? Mm-hmm. Boy, am I stupid.
Oh,
I
You're
had no
not
idea.
stupid, no.
Well, we were talking again during the break. You said you can go into a bar or other establishments and spot right away if this is
how?
going on.
Probably because I've been doing this for so long. But it's just like even the little nuances. Like I know at the casino downtown Cleveland, there was a girl who had come in, and you have to show ID. And she was with an older gentleman. Well, he pulled, her information out of his pocket. Well, he's holding on to that for her, because that way she can't run. Where's she going to go? She has no identification.
Okay, I'm not following that.
What?
Do you get that?
Well, if
What?
she's in there, he's pulling out her information for her. So there's like the control
To
issue.
tell her where to go.
Right, like here's your stuff. Here, I'm holding it. Let me give that to them. You don't get to do that because I'm controlling you. I hold on to your stuff. So those little sorts of things. In Victoria's Secret at Christmas, and watched a younger guy with a girl, and she was purchasing like 7 pairs of pajamas while he stood there on his phone, and I watched him because I knew what he was. I knew what was going on. But she was buying stuff for all the girls in his stable. So
Really?
yeah.
Now, you say they don't make any money, so
So why?
why are they doing this? Are they being
Are
forced?
they
They're
trapped in there and
they
they can't get out?
They are forced into that, yes. We know I've worked with girls who met their boyfriends online. Social media is horrendous. And, they are offering them things that they don't have in their lives. Even if it's just, you know, taking them to dinner or getting their nails done, you know, things that they've never had before. And
Wow.
and then from that moment, it becomes that incredibly, we've all heard of Stockholm Syndrome, I'm assuming, no, yes?
No.
Where, and I'll use it, and no offense to age, but looking back at like Patty Hearst. Do you remember
Right,
the whole
I
Patty
do
Hearst
that.
thing? That's where the whole thing evolved from, is having that, that sympathy, empathy for your captor.
Oh,
And-
okay.
Maybe she switched over.
Right,
Right.
but these girls, I mean, there's that loyalty, and like here's even some sort of bizarre sense of security by being with this person, and who's going to believe her? Her family's not going to want her back, you know. So
So what happens to them? Some of them must get out, and if they do, where do they go? How do they do that?
well, I know Cleveland Rape Crisis has a program called Project Star, and we offer a 24-hour hotline that's available at any place, anytime, anywhere, and they can access us, and we can help, you know, get them, if need be, whatever services they might need. We work directly with the FBI, as do most coalitions and collaboratives. Work directly with the FBI in you know, helping to help these women out.
I mean, like, do they call at 2 in the morning and
Absolutely.
say, I've got, excuse me, I've got to get out of here. Help me with, like, crying or whatever.
Absolutely.
Aren't they afraid if they get caught, they'll get killed?
Absolutely. I mean, but it's you know, it's, we will take every steps necessary to keep them safe. That's why we work with the police department and the FBI so closely, and trying to keep them as safe
Christie,
as possible.
how do you, what about law enforcement here?
Yeah,
We
that's
haven't mentioned law enforcement.
Yeah.
If we had trafficking in Conneaut, I don't believe we get police reports every day. I've never seen
Well, we
anything on
get police reports, but we get what they give us.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, you know, I think it's just a matter of, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen and the police aren't doing their job. I think maybe they need to be, you know, maybe there needs to be an educational component to that and what to look for. I know the state of Ohio has mandated a requirement through OPATA that they need.
And what's that?
Last year, I believe, or the year before, where they need to take some classes even online about human trafficking.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, so I know in Lorain County, all of our law enforcement has done that so far. I know Cuyahoga County is very much involved in the anti-trafficking movement. I think a lot of times in smaller communities like this, it's not thought of as prevalent as you would in like downtown Cleveland, but it absolutely is existing right now.
I would imagine in Cleveland, of course, Martha and I, we've heard stories, but the bigger cities have this problem more than
Oh,
the
yeah.
little rural communities.
Yeah.
But I imagine you probably have quite a bit of that going on up there.
We do. I know even past Lorain County, and I know even in this part of Northeast Ohio, there's a lot of labor trafficking as well. Usually about now is when the bunches of people are coming in to do a lot of the work in a lot of the greenhouses and orchards and all of those
right,
sorts of
okay.
things.
Immigrant type.
Correct. Right. A lot of the restaurants and such, we had one I know specific in Lorain County that was closed down for labor trafficking. It was a Mexican restaurant by Midway Mall.
Really?
Yeah, that they were trafficking people. So.
But like, say you were a police officer and you were in the casino and you saw the man come in with the girl and you saw him whip the ID out. There's no. What could the
You
guy
can't,
do about
but
it?
the
Because there's
reason-
no law
For that.
being broken.
There's not, but where it is the human trafficking law has actually just started to evolve to where it is its own standalone crime. And the problem with it is that you have to actually see that exchange of money, goods, or services. You know, whether it's, we've talked to girls who've been exchanged for cigarettes. And so you have to actually witness that. You know, you could go up and question a girl, police officers could, you know, hey, how old are you? What you doing here? You know, just to kind of have a conversation with them. But she's not going to answer if he's standing right behind her because he knows she's been trained not to talk or trust anybody.
Now, you know, you see a lot of this undercover stuff where people are busted by police officers that are undercover, or men or female
Right.
officers. Does that happen quite a bit up there in Cleveland?
Actually, we just did, what was it, cross country, maybe 13, I'm not even quite sure. But every year they do it around the same time, and FBI agents all across the country simultaneously will bust and arrest, suspected pimps, in their operations because they've been watching, and they've rescued many, many women during these sorts of operations, yeah. So it's interesting.
It's a fascinating story.
Yeah, it's very sad, and I know now that the Republican National Convention is coming, wherever there's large groups of folks, especially men, no offense, but they're away, and they're away from their wives, and just like the Super Bowl, there's going to be lots of girls being brought in for that particular week that folks will be here. So we're all trying to work, all of our collaboratives are working proactively to figure out what we're going to do to kind of attack this, when that happens.
Well, that kind of situation has been since biblical days.
Absolutely.
The men are drawn to women, and that's what happens.
Well, and it's not going to go away. I mean, do I hope that it would? I think what my main goal and the folks working in this movement is to change the mindset that that crack hoe or that person who you see, or that girl who's a prostitute or whatever, that she's somebody's mother, she's somebody's daughter, she's somebody's sister, she's something, and not a disposable person. And that's a really important piece. And when people say, what do we do to do that, to help this, instead of getting involved in it where I'm at right now and where we are, it's becoming a big brother or a big sister, and getting kids when they're little, and being a strong, supportive advocate for them, just to kind of not have them
as far as educating.
And just being there for them, because a lot of these kids don't have somebody, and if you can get them when they're 8 years old, they're not going to go out looking in other places for love and attention.
And when we were young, a lot of this, the moms usually were home.
Right.
And that's not the case today, because mom's got to work.
Well, and just so you know too, moms have trafficked their own kids. So
really?
Oh yeah. So when we think of the fuzzy hatted guy, with the big staff that sits on his throne with his, that does exist. But we know of grandparents who have trafficked their grandkids, so it's out there.
You had another organization that you wanted to mention.
Well, no, just Project STAR. Our 800 number is 855-431-STAR. So if anybody is out and about, or if you see little cards and I can hold them up, I'm going to put these kind of everywhere that I go. I also want to give our hotline for the folks. One of the things that we did do, which we're really proud of, is that we established a 440 area code for the folks in Ashtabula, because sometimes people are a little discouraged by a 216 area code, thinking that that's just for Cleveland. But our services at Cleveland Rape Crisis, we do have a therapist that is currently working in Ashtabula, and we see ages 3 through death pretty much.
So where do they meet them? Because I know people in Cleveland can go to the Rape Crisis Center downtown.
Home Safe actually has opened up themselves to us, which is wonderful.
In Ashtabula.
Right. Our services are completely free. We did become CARF accredited, meaning that we can take Medicaid to kind of help offset our costs, which is pretty exciting stuff. I think we're the only rape crisis center in the country that has been able to, to be able to do that.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty exciting, but we will never turn anybody down. We offer 12 sessions with a therapist. We do, play therapy, art therapy, whatever the need of the client is. We offer parent support as well, and safety, which are crisis support as well. So
do you have to go to college for this, or? Okay.
I'm actually going to have my master's May 1st.
Is that right?
I remember you talking about that last week at the prison.
I know. I'm so excited. Thank goodness. And I'm going to sit for my independent license. But
good for you. Good for you.
And I have one more question, and I used to ask this to Judge Harris. When you deal with all this sordid area of life, do you get discouraged?
Yeah, do you take it home with you?
Yeah, do you take it home with you? Do you think, oh my gosh, humanity is just a mess?
Is humanity a mess? Yes. Do
I see that? You know, those of us in other areas, we don't.
You know what? I have hope. I really have hope, and I know that there's just such good in people. It is discouraging sometimes, but
Let's take this call.
oh, there's a call.
Yeah,
Hi, you're on the air.
Hi. She was addressing young women and young children, especially women, but maybe she'd like to talk about young boys that may have been raped or, victimized.
Sure.
Thank you.
So
Sure.
that they know that that's available for them too.
Okay, good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
It's true. Boys are absolutely, run the risk of being abused and assaulted as well. But like we kind of touched on in the beginning, boys are a little less likely to come forward because of the stigma associated with, weakness and masculinity and that. I've actually worked with many boys in my work that I've done. I worked at a children's advocacy center that focuses specifically on children and sexual abuse of kids. And we saw just hordes of young boys that were abused. And so, that helping things it does. If a child comes to you, regardless, boys or girls, and says that something has happened, it is important and imperative that, we believe them. Because it's, for a kid to come up, they're not going to make that stuff up. And even as a father or a mother, this just doesn't go away. And so, if your son comes up to you and says that this has happened, and unfortunately most of the time it's by people that we know, whether that's, coaches, clergy, teachers, family members, there is that whole thing, oh, it's a stranger, don't get in the car, that there is no puppy, which I've always told my kids. They're like, yeah, we know there's no puppy. But, these are people that that you trust, that are the ones that are unfortunately the biggest perpetrators.
Christy, what about the 3 girls that were kidnapped in Cleveland? Will they ever be right? They seem to be, but...
I can't say whether they will or not. That's up to them and their strength and their support and their mindset. And, if I have depression and you have depression, even though we have depression, it's going to be very different for both of us.
Sure.
So I think, they have an incredibly strong support network. And
we changed her name though. I thought
she
that
did.
was significant.
She's actually going to be speaking. We're having a luncheon April 15th. It's our Faces of Change luncheon, which is enormous for us at Cleveland Rape Crisis.
I think I read that.
And she's going to be speaking. Yeah.
They're also the television movie's coming out April 25th.
Oh, okay.
Which April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Do you think it helped? I thought it did. Maybe this is not a good question. The fact that 3 of them were there together so they could commiserate, misery loves company.
But you know what though? They were all treated very differently.
Right, but at least they were
And there seems to be a split between those.
Yeah.
And that's
still,
just part of their
wondered about
healing
that.
process,
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Yeah.
Good morning, you're on the air.
You remember way back when they started all this violence and pornography and stuff on TV, and we protested and they said, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. So we didn't watch it, but people who were perverted watched it, and this is what happened. Evil just keeps growing. It doesn't stop with one little thing. The person does that, and then they think, well, let's try this, and it just snowballs. And the children are always the ones that pay the price for anything. I don't care what it is. They're the ones that pay.
That's true.
And then what's the next generation going to be like? People don't, we talk about love all the time, but people don't really care for one another like they used to. Children used to be very precious because they had all these horrible diseases like diphtheria and whooping cough and measles and kids died from. But now we have all the medication, so they live and we don't regard them as precious. So in many cases they're just a nuisance. Isn't that sad?
Very much so.
We have all this stuff and people are miserable.
Good point.
Thank you.
So what prompted you to go into this work in the first place?
I just believe in, I've been a very large women's rights activist for years and years and years, and I think in my college days back in the day, that was kind of where I really kind of got little bits and pieces of it, and then I just kind of took it as my mission to...
Where'd you go to college?
Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado is
Oh,
where I
wow.
actually graduated from, but I was a duck.
Did you grow up out there?
No, I'm from Elyria.
Oh.
But I was a duck, and unfortunately, go Ducks. But that's probably not a good thing to say here with go Buckeyes. But I went to the University of Oregon for a little bit.
Wow.
I rooted for them. They lost. Okay.
So you went out there, but you came back home then?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I think we all seem to come back home.
You're originally from Cleveland?
I was originally from Elyria.
Elyria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you live up that way now?
I do.
Okay. Family?
Family's out there. I have a daughter. She lives in Columbia, South Carolina. She moved there in January. And I have a son who's a sophomore in high school, and so, yeah.
Sophomore in high school.
I know. I'm old.
No, you're not that old.
No.
No. I really appreciate you coming in, Christy. I think this
Yeah.
was very enlightening. I learned a lot.
Well, good. I
Do
appreciate
you
being
think
able-
you'll expand the services out at the prison beyond?
I hope.
Will there ever be a place where the guys can go talk and open up and all that? Are you
Plant that
up
seed.
for one-on-one?
Would love to do that.
counseling?
Would love to do that. And I know the folks at the prison have been so incredibly
Yeah.
welcoming to us, and
Yeah.
so I've been really happy about all of it. It's been
Yeah.
enlightening for all of us.
I understand this new warden,
He's
fairly
wonderful.
new, is
He's
very
amazing.
proactive.
He is
Yes.
just
Good
really
guy.
a good guy.
Mhm.
Now
Yeah.
you said this was a grant,
Right.
so is there a danger it would run out, or
Maybe. Could.
how many years is it?
They go at a year time. But I have, what was set forth before me when I took the position, I have accomplished all of those things. And now we're just continuing. Like, for example, we really would like to get, this year, even to have a booth at the fair where we can be able to get, information out to the masses. There and at the Geauga County Fair, we just want people to know that we're here for them, and we want to work with folks in the community. We're not here to take over or any of that. We just want to kind of embrace everybody and work with everybody and do and help out and all that other kind of stuff.
Good. Glad to have you.
If
I'd like you to
somebody-
come back sometime.
Yeah.
Can I would love to.
Absolutely.
I have one more question. I don't know what
Sure,
our time
that's
is
all right.
like.
That's all right.
I guess.
You're okay.
If somebody calls you and says, "I need help. I have no place to go," do you find them housing? Do you find them a place to go?
We are really lucky. We've actually just hired on a case manager at Rape Crisis.
Okay.
The thing too, the scope of what we do in one county versus another is unfortunately kind of determined by the grant. The
Right,
scope of the
right.
grant. So let's say somebody called me from Ashtabula County that needed some sort of a housing. I would look up my resources and I would call those folks for them and probably say, hey, I just got this phone call from this person who needs some housing. Can you follow up with them? I don't come through here and just take over. I just try to work. I know the victim advocates. Hi, Dawn, if you're watching over in Jefferson, Dawn Cochran. She's fantastic. She's been amazing. The folks at Home Safe have really been helpful and amazing out here too. So,
And then, do you ever get women who leave and then want to go back?
That's domestic violence stuff, yeah.
family. Oh,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's kind of like their family, and they.
Yeah, domestic
You know.
violence is its own separate entity. I did DV work for years, and you kind of learn as you evolve in this field what you like and what you don't like, and what you're good at and what you're not. And domestic violence, I ran my course with that.
Yeah.
And that's ethics. I mean, just for me, I don't feel like I could give folks the best that I could on a regular basis anymore because I
Yeah.
got kind of burnt out doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could see why.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're not burned out in what you're doing now. You
Oh,
seem
no.
very passionate about it. Like you love what
I know
you're
people
doing
think
and-
we're crazy what we do, but we love what we do.
No, I admire you. I really
love
do.
it.
It's-
I can't do
it's,
child physical abuse.
Uh-huh.
That I can't do either.
I
Yeah.
could never do that.
No.
But I can do child sex abuse all day long, which is strange, I
Oh,
know.
gosh.
But
No,
I give you
that's
credit. Somebody has to
fantastic.
do it.
Somebody has to do it,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
No,
much,
that's
Christie.
fantastic.
Thank you. That
Good
was
job.
fun. Thanks.
Good
And here,
job.
I'm going to leave these here for you, so if anybody calls and needs numbers,
Okay.
Okay.
440-423-2020 is the number. If you're interested in therapy, Christy Alley is amazing. You can call our number, or 216 619-6194, and schedule a time to where if you'd like to get some therapy here in the county.
You want to get that number again? We almost always do it
Slow.
twice.
Slow, I did it fast. 216-619-6194, extension 141, and that is our intake line for therapy, and they will hook you up with therapy in
Where are
Ashtabula.
you reading that at?
I'm saying that off my
Oh.
head.
Ah,
This,
Got me completely confused.
I
I'm
know,
looking
right? Yeah, no, this is all about, and Project Star is 855-431-STAR or 7827.
do you see a time when they might set up an office, a permanent office out in
I don't
Ashtabula
know.
County?
That'd be pretty nifty, but I don't know.
And it's always money, so,
Yeah, so
Everything's money.
everything's money.
it is.
Yeah.